It's time to dig into iPadOS 14.
I'm going to show you how to sign up for things privately.
Before we round things out with a look at how to control your smart home with a dashboard.
It's time for iOS Today. iOS Today comes to you from TWiT's LastPass Studios. You're focused on security, but are your employees? LastPass can ensure they are by making access and authentication seamless, whether they're working in the office or remotely. Visit lastpass.com/twit to learn more.
Podcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is TWiT.
This episode of iOS Today is brought to you by LastPass. Prepare for the unexpected in your business with LastPass. Trusted by over 17 million users and 61,000 businesses worldwide. Visit lastpass.com/twit to find out how they can help you. Hello, Mikah Sargent.
Hello, Leo Laporte.
And welcome to the new era. The new era of Apple. It all started yesterday. The world has shifted.
Oh, my goodness. Did you feel it?
Yeah, and it couldn't have happened at a better time because, frankly, I'm getting tired of the existing world. So now I can focus. I'm so excited about the big Apple transition to Apple Silicon away from Intel, about the new macOS 11. 11. It goes to
number.
11. Big Sur. But most importantly, iOS and iPadOS and watchOS and tvOS. All
Lots
of which
of OS.
got refreshed yesterday. Now, none of us will be getting this officially until the fall. As usual, they announced new versions of iOS and iPadOS in June at the WWDC, the Worldwide Developers Conference, as they did yesterday. And then they give you, because you're a developer, and you're crazy, a developer beta. And then they give us a public beta in July. And in the fall, when the new iPhones come out, they'll push out all that other stuff. So you, yesterday, after we covered it, and by the way, I totally recommend you watch our coverage of WWDC. There was two keynotes. Mikah and I did the first one, and then I was so excited. I came back and we did the State of the Union, just me and my jammies watching at home. And boy, I got so excited. I downloaded
Fake FaceTime call.
You what?
That fake FaceTime call in the State of the Union. That was
You
annoying.
like that part?
No, it was so annoying.
It was a little
all
fake.
of it felt contrived.
It was all because that was the problem with all this. It was pre-recorded. They didn't have a live audience, and I don't think they even bothered doing it live. But you know what? They wanted it, and you know Apple. They wanted it just so. They didn't want.
Right.
I watched. Tim Cook did not blink for an entire hour and 45 minutes.
Well, for the prompter, you can tell someone who's worked with a prompter for a long time versus someone who hasn't, because they get this. If they haven't, they get these eyes because it helps them to see more of what's on the prompter without moving their eyes as much, and so they get these very big eyes. And you kept seeing that with Mr. Cookie especially, where his eyes would get very big as he was talking, and you're going, "I know you're reading a prompter, and you're making me uncomfortable."
There are a few people whose eyes were shiftily going back and forth as they read the lines. It's, you know what? That's fine. It's fine.
It's fine.
I'm not going to complain about that because I'm really excited about everything they announced. I mean, they said it. This is the biggest change to macOS since the move to Intel. This is the biggest, I think, the biggest change to iOS since the iPhone came out. I am very excited. Now you and I had different reactions because I immediately downloaded Xcode 12 and started playing with the code and playing with the new Swift UI and stuff like that. You did something crazy.
Yeah, well, I had to download the new version of Xcode because it's the only way to install the beta on your devices.
That, by the way, is a 9 gigabyte download.
It's huge, and you have to wait for the xzip to
It expands into a 20 gigabyte installer.
It's huge.
You better have a lot of drive space. And I did it twice. Once on my iMac Pro, which happened fairly swiftly, but No pun intended. But then I did it on my MacBook Air, and I literally had to go to bed. It was like, I'm not waiting for you. It took that long.
God.
It's not just the download, but the expansion took a long time. But so you had to do, I didn't realize that, to install the developer beta. So you have to be a developer. There is a free tier. I paid for the $99 tier because I was hoping to get the Mac Mini developer kit, and then they said things like, "So tell us about the application you're going to use this for."
Right.
And I
was wondering if the quiz was going to be kind of difficult. And so basically, here's the deal: is that you don't have to install Xcode on your Mac if you don't run into issues with the installation on your devices. So Apple sets it up two ways. One way is to go to the website on your phone or iPad or whatever and get the profile that you then install on your device. And then it makes it so that you can download the update over the air directly to your device. But
that's the easy way to do it.
That's the easy way to do it. And that's actually the recommended way to do it. But if you run into an issue and you need to restore your device because it's been utterly bricked, then you have to use the Mac. And now it used to be that iTunes was the way that you did it, but now it's just the Finder as of macOS Catalina.
Right.
And so
that's the DFU, as they call it, the firmware update. Yeah.
Device firmware update, I think is what it stands for, or something like that. But what happened, so I had tried to install iPadOS on my iPad, and it just didn't work. It stalled. And when I plugged it into my Mac, the first thing that I do is, I start going into what I know to work as a sort of troubleshooting feature. And so I have Apple Configurator 2, which is not important, but it's a Mac application for people to who manage multiple devices. And so this is a very good way if you are managing multiple devices and if you're trying to kind of get deeper into the system to make adjustments, I use this tool. So normally that's my way to fix things because I can go in and I can basically reset and restore the iPad. So I tried to use the new version of iPadOS to restore the iPad, and it said, no, I can't do that. And so I thought, well, crud, this is not good. So
because you need it for today.
Right. And at the very least, even if I can't install the new version of iPadOS, I want to just reinstall the older version so I can at least have my iPad and not have to send it into Apple. So then I tried to install iPadOS 13, and it said, no, I can't do that. And so then I started to freak out a little bit. Oh, boy, I'm going to have to send this in. Luckily, I put it into DFU mode, and I was able to install iPadOS 13, which is the current version. That works just fine. And then on my device, I did it again. Oops, I did it again. But this time it actually worked. I was able to upgrade to, iPadOS 14.
That is a long way to go. Now, I should point out, I probably confused everybody because Apple's event was actually last week, but we're recording this the day after.
That's right. Yeah.
So what we did is we did a iOS Today for the week of June 23rd, the day of the event, right afterwards, and we went through all the new features on the phone. And we thought a week later, June 30th, where my Mikah's going to be out that day, so we thought, well, let's record that today and show off the new iPadOS because I am excited about both. And I really think this is a big, big upgrade all around in every respect. But today we're going to do iPadOS, what's new in iPadOS. And some of this does actually apply back to the iPhone and iOS 14. So don't mean to confuse you. I know it wasn't yesterday. It was a week ago yesterday, but we're doing this a little early so that we can, because we're so excited.
So we're confused, but you shouldn't be.
You shouldn't be. It should all be sensible for you. So let me see. Come on. Show me. Oh, it's so pretty.
I even did the new wallpaper in honor of this. So this is iPadOS 14. It looks similar, I would imagine, to what you're used to when you see
the widgets. Do the widgets look the same to you? That looks like it's it's a little different looking.
Oh, the rounded corners.
Yeah, they're more rounded than they were before.
Yes.
All the icons
are. The fact that I can switch between these.
Wait a minute. Do that again. That was cool. Whatever you that's what we call a widget stack.
Yes. And I think this one is a smart stack, so it changes automatically based on what time of day it is and things like that. So I'm going to show, we'll hold down, and then we'll do edit widget. Well, no, that's not it. Hold on. Again, this is all new to us as well. Hold down anywhere on the home screen and then choose
Jiggle,
plus.
jiggle. They actually called it Jiggle Mode, which I thought it was me, but it's really called Jiggle Mode.
I could tap plus to find different widgets. So there's
so this is the first big and the most obvious change is now many apps, certainly all the Apple apps will have widgets, and third-party developers. It's very easy to add a widget. I played with that yesterday. You can make a widget for your and many apps will have more than one widget. They'll have a variety of different sizes, shapes, and informational stuff. So you see, there's 3 widgets for forecast. That's really cool. Really cool.
Add that weather widget there.
That's the square one, so you get more on a line. You can have 2 different square widgets on a single line. Now, we're adding this right now to that widget thing that's on the what is the official name? I don't know. It's the widget tray on the left of the iPad. Today View, that's it. But you don't have to. You're not stuck with Today View.
No. You can actually, so if I hold down, I can turn this off, and then when I tap done, I can make that go away. So it's away, but then swiping over brings Today View back.
But that's not
I happen to like Today View, so I want to leave it there.
But you can also drag those widgets. I don't know about an iPad, but on the iPhone, you can drag them.
Let's see if whoops, I didn't want to show that yet. Again, it's all still very new. Let me see if I can bring these widgets over. I don't
I'd be
think
disappointed if you can't do widgets on the iPad. On the iPhone, you can have them because it doesn't have the Today View.
Yeah, and in fact,
that's a little disappointing.
I have.
Oh, you do.
Widget up top of.
Look at that! Your calendar widgets on your homepage. This was something. Now I know you Android folks are going to say, "Well, we've had that for years.
I already have that.
I've had that for a long time." It was one of the reasons that I actually still used Android phones. It was one thing I really missed. They hadn't updated this. They call it Springboard. This homepage for the iOS practically since 2007. So widgets are important. First of all, you don't have to use them. You may say, no, I want a grid of icons. But I find it very useful, especially on my front page, to have informational widgets. And the widget stack helps with the space issue because you can swipe through. You have a little bit of space taken up, but you can have multiple widgets in that stack.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so you can stack them up, and in fact, that's why on iPad I have this second one where it shows multiple.
And that's actually something unique to Apple. I haven't seen that on Android before. I love that.
And you can do this with both the wider widgets and the squares. So the squares can be stacks too. Of course, right now it's still new, and so there is some weirdness between actual widgets that we're used to in the Today View and these new kinds of widgets, and making adjustments to those is not currently possible. So again, this is, I know that I have trouble with this because I have to say, we always go the do as I say, not as I do route. And it does feel a little hypocritical because we have so much fun, or at least I do have so much fun playing around with this. And so to say, oh, you shouldn't do this on your device, but at the same time to choose to do it on mine, it feels a little disingenuous, I guess.
No, not at all.
Okay.
You're taking the hit for the rest of us because I'm going to tell you right now, no way I'm installing the developer beta on my iPad or my iPhone.
That's
no
fair.
way.
Because of what I had to do yesterday, right?
Perfect example, right? But I'll think about it when it comes to the public beta next month. That's coming out in July, actually a few days from now. We don't know exactly when in July. I might consider it then. But you have to understand, especially with the developer beta, you're taking a big risk. So you're doing this for us, Mikah. You got to know how to shade this. This is not you being a bad boy. This is you taking a hit for the rest of us. Thank you, Mikah. Thank you.
You know what? You're so welcome. I'm happy to
appreciate you're taking this hit. I'm very jealous, too. I really am.
Yeah. Again, there's lots of messiness to it still. So it's hardly hardly something that's, perfect and what I think they'll eventually want.
So they do have redesigned widgets. They have redesigned widgets in the today view. And they have the smart stack of widgets. So I really like that. But that's not all. But wait, there's more. Let's see some more. Oh, Files. Has Files been updated?
Files looks a little different. It's about the app design here. So sidebars everywhere.
It's so funny because Apple eschewed sidebars a few years ago. Got rid of them in many things. Remember? They foolishly got rid of the sidebars in iTunes and no one knew how to use it, so they brought it back.
You had to go into the settings to bring it back. And now, and then you used to have to swipe down from the top to access these controls for list view versus icon view versus column view.
Yeah.
Now you don't have to do that anymore. So again, more akin to what you expect on macOS.
Well, that's what's nice. Also interesting is the macOS became very much more like iOS. So there's kind of their meeting in the middle. Do you remember a couple of years ago, Phil Schiller said, many people ask me if macOS and iOS are going to merge, and he had a big no come down in his PowerPoint. Boom. Well, things change, right? Times have changed, and there's a little bit of a merging going on right now.
Yeah, exactly.
They're much more like each other than they used to be.
Along with that, so the sidebars are new. The toolbars, like we showed, have kind of all, instead of having a bunch of different icons, they're all available in these little toolbars that pop out. That's
cleaner. I like that.
Yeah, it's all around cleaner. But then one of my new favorite features, and the one that we talked about, again, macOSification. Normally, because the way that I access apps is through Spotlight. So I would swipe down on my home screen to access Spotlight or Command Space to access Spotlight search. But when I do this, look what happens. What is that? That's a new search bar.
That's like Spotlight on the Mac.
Just like Spotlight on the Mac. It has Siri suggestions here. So if you want to access Siri suggestions there, then you can do so. But let's see. There we go.
There are two kinds of people in the iOS world. And you and I represent those two polar opposites.
Yeah, exactly.
I organize everything into folders. I name the folders. My iPad and my iPhone are organized because I can go to my second page and I'll have lots of folders there with I know my folder names with everything I need. So I have really only 3 pages on my iPhone and iPad. The home page with the stuff I use the most. The second page with categorized, alphabetically sorted folders. And then the third page where the utilities live, my password manager, my settings, and all of that stuff. That's one type of person.
What is...
You are the other kind of person. And I don't want to characterize it. You should characterize yourself. What's wrong with you? I mean, what do you do? You just jam them all.
Are these just letters? Alphabetical letters? I believe so.
Do you actually put the apps in the right letter folder, or do you even care about that?
No, I don't. Those folders, I just needed names for the folders, and I'm not going to individually name all the folders.
It gives one the impression that you're organized without the actual organization.
Right, because I don't care how they're organized, because that's just not how I find apps. It is in my head the app that I want to find, and so I swipe down and type in the app that I'm looking for, and then I go directly to that app. I download way too many apps to spend the time to organize them, and it's just. Honestly, I will say I do think it's a factor of ADHD, frankly. It's so boring to me to sit there and categorize the apps.
It's a real pain in the butt. It is.
And it is. Jiggle mode is a lot of annoyance.
And as you can see, I'm a little behind on my Jiggle mode because these are things I showed on previous. So I have to now put them in Jiggle mode, drag them over here. I don't even. Oh yeah, it goes in photography.
Figure out what category.
Oh yeah. So that's kind of. Not fun, but Apple has found a way kind of to split the difference, haven't they? Yeah.
So it's called App Library, and it isn't as I've tried accessing it on iPadOS, and I don't think it's a feature for iPadOS because I can't find it anywhere. But it is a feature on iOS, and it essentially organizes apps for you. So it does Siri suggestions for apps that you use regularly. It does does suggestions for recently added apps that you've put in your app library, and then from there it organizes them according to the type of app that they are. So creativity and games and things like that, it'll show those in all these different categories. And then the bigger ones are ones that you use more frequently. The smaller ones are ones that you use less. You can also search using the app library search at the top, and it's just like using the search functionality by swiping down from the top.
Do you find it odd that they did not put this in iPadOS?
I find it incredibly odd that it's not in iPadOS.
I feel like they just might not have been ready, or I don't know. I feel like
I want to believe that that's the case because I don't understand why else it wouldn't be there. One thing that I find that I really like about this is there are technically 2 other pages of apps that I have on my iPhone, but I've been able to hide those and just use app library as my sort of swipe to the left functionality. Right. So if I tap on this little, the little swipey thing down at the bottom, then you can see these 2 other pages of apps that I currently have.
You can edit those pages. Oh, you've turned them off.
Yeah, so that way.
Oh, this is perfect. No more A, B, C, D folders. You don't have to do anything.
Nope.
The only problem I have with that is I don't always agree with the folders and the folder names that Apple uses. And I think sometimes that's because it's up to the developer to say what category an app is in. And so
if I used categories to find apps, then I think that this would not be a solution for me.
Yeah.
But the fact that I don't use the categories, I just search for them.
WhatsApp a social app or a messaging app, that kind of thing. It's
right.
And sometimes they come up with weird names when you put 2 weird things together.
Exactly.
So I don't actually use any of the Apple folder suggestions generally, but this way you don't. This is really very Apple. That's so Apple, because they want it to be organized, but they don't want you to have to do anything. So they're always trying to find a way to get a normal user who's not anxious, just like you, to spend time going wiggle, 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 drag, drag, drag. They want to do it in a way that's intuitive, easy, almost as if the user did it by hand, but without any effort on the user's part. And I think this is actually I think it's a good idea. I'll try it. I'll use it for a while. I'll see if I like it.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
I'll have to see. Another thing is compact UI. So it used to be that even on iPad, if you got a call, it would take up your whole stinking screen.
Or Siri. Siri on the iPad. It's like the whole dang thing. I don't like that.
Here's Siri in the bottom right corner. I'm talking to Siri now.
She's just glowing.
She can hear me. And let me turn that off so I can say, what's the weather like today?
Here's the weather today.
Look,
and so it shows
even
in the bottom.
Doesn't take over. Just in case you've forgotten already, folks, this is what happens when I do Siri on the iOS 13. The whole thing disappears, and now Siri is like I got a 12.9 inches of nothing. Like, that's ridiculous.
12.9 inches of nothing.
So I think this is a big improvement. I don't know what took them so long. I'm going to guess there was a philosophical thing going on.
It was.
That, look, when Siri's going, you should pay attention.
Pay attention to Siri.
Only be
Siri's talking.
Do not mix. Don't do nobody multitask. Apple.
ABS. Always be Siri.
Always be Syrian. I honestly think the iPad and iOS really is designed to single task, right? Because every app is full screen. You can't. They've slowly pushed into multitasking, and it isn't very good. The sidebar and all that stuff. It's not very good. I think the Apple's heart is not in multitasking. They know people want to do it. So now I think they're coming around. I'm pleased to see it. Because how many times are you on a phone call, for instance, and you want to use a calculator or you want to look at your calendar? And in the past, you've had to swipe away from the phone call, do the calendar thing, then swipe back. Now you can have a phone call going in the corner and be looking at your calendar, right? That works that way, right?
Yes. Yeah, exactly. And so with phone calls and with FaceTime calls and with VoIP calls for developers who set it up. You will be able to have that compact UI, so you can continue those calls while you do other things, like you can do on the Mac. And that means that you can swipe it away whenever you don't want it there. Make it disappear. So every time someone calls me for some god awful reason, I can just get rid of the call.
And every call is a god awful.
Every
reason.
call is swiped.
There's no good reason for calling anybody these days. I have a theory, and it's probably bogus. But
Is
remember,
it a Siri theory?
It's a Siri theory. Johnny Ive left Apple last year, and I think Johnny was the dogmatic one, because he was in charge of all user interfaces across all platforms. He as their chief designer, and I think Johnny was the guy who was saying no, one thing at a time, one thing at a time, one thing at a time, and that's very contrarian to Apple's older style of computing. Back when the Macintosh was their only product, they always said you should never be in a modal dialogue. You should never be in one thing. You should always be able to do other things. No dialogue box should take over and force you to respond to it before you go on. And that was the original thinking on the Apple. Johnny Ive comes in, especially with iOS, and says, nope, you're going to do one thing at a time. And now that he's gone, it may be me, may just be my imagination, I feel like Apple's saying, yeah, no, we know how you work. You want to do more than one thing at a time.
I like that theory. I think that's a good theory. And the other thing is Scribble, which is new in iPadOS.
Everything new is old again. This is Newton.
Newton, yes.
But if it works, see, Newton didn't work. Very famously, I think Doonesbury, the old comic strip, mocked Newton in 1980. Was it 5 when it came out? Saying there was a famous Newton cartoon. I think it said something like, "You were writing with your handwriting. How many newtons does it take to screw in a light bulb?" And the answer is, and you wrote the answer, farm. And that was kind of the way of showing. Newton never really understood your handwriting, but we're a long way back from that. 40 years later, maybe it's time. Let's see. Can you do it?
Let's see.
It's designed to use Apple Pencil, right?
Yes, and that's what I'm currently doing. Does the new Newton understand?
So your handwriting's pretty good.
Not
but it's
my best handwriting.
But it's it's not perfect. It's like normal human handwriting.
But I'm saying.
So you've just written in a notepad, you've just written a sentence in your own handwriting.
And now I'm going to use my finger to select this.
Oh.
And then I'm going to, I don't know how to copy. Okay, copy. And then I'm going to paste. Oh, no, that's not how I want to do it. What I'm trying to do is, oh, there we go. So let me delete that. Let me select it again, and then I'm going to choose
in the pop-up,
copy as text.
Copy as text.
And then
let's see what happens.
We're going to choose insert space. There we go. Let me.
And you didn't type anything.
I can't figure out how to change to typing here. Put it back on my.
Shouldn't it just be text if you paste it?
Does the new Newton understand what I'm saying?
Oh, it did.
It did. It did capitalize the what, but I like that it added a line break in the way that I did do a line break.
Wow.
And then I can also, so I've got my Apple Pencil in my hand, and I don't really want to put it back on the thing up top. So if I wanted to, I can use in any text entry field.
That's to me what's most interesting.
And so let's see here. I'm going to
because so many times you're using the pencil and you have to put it down and go to the keyboard. And wouldn't it be nice if you're using the pencil that everything could work with? What? Did it do it?
Yeah, it did, except it got wrong what I was trying to type.
Yeah, so that's going to be the question is how farmy is it? Hey, look.
That wasn't bad, but I was trying to type in TWiT.TV, but it thinks that's an R. Because of my left-hand writing.
Yeah.
TWiT.TV.
We lefties have always been.
There we go.
Yeah. So remember when the Palm Pilot came out, they looked at the Newton and said, that's not good enough. And I remember actually talking to Jeff Hawking, the guy who created the Palm, and its own handwriting called graffiti. And he said, instead of trying to teach our users to write like a computer can understand it, we're going to use a special alphabet that's less ambiguous. You saw the V and the R, they're kind of ambiguous, right?
They are, yeah.
So the graffiti alphabet you had to learn a new alphabet, but once you learned it, you could write very quickly and very accurately because it disambiguated things that looked like each other, like I and L and things like that. So
let's try this.
So everywhere there's a text field now, you can type, "Hello, Leo," and now you can send a text that says what?
That says, "Hello, LE0."
Well, see, that's the ambiguity again. Do you mean O or do you mean 0?
I imagine that it'll continue to get better. And one of the things that we have to keep in mind is that if you give permission to Apple to do so, this is interesting. I'm going to switch back just so I can show this. It's shown me now a prompt.
Maybe they want a little training, huh?
That might be what it is. So let me see. I'm going to write my name. And see, my M is very strange.
Also, you use capital letters interchangeably with lowercase. But this is normal for people of your age who weren't learned.
I do love this.
How to write real penmanship.
Okay,
you scribbled it out. That's a Newton. That's a Newton thing. Although with the Newton, it would make a little crumple up paper sound and turn it into
I love being able to just select the part of the text.
That's cool.
Insert, tap and hold in any text area.
So he's just circling a word and it gets selected.
And then if I want to drop some words in, I tap and hold on that area. Whoops, let me do that again. I'll tap and hold on an area. Well,
it's selecting the whole word instead of just putting a caret.
There we go.
Yeah.
And then it creates a space where
you can now write. So this is printed text, and now you're writing, and then it converts it to printed text. That's pretty cool.
Draw a vertical line between characters to separate or join them. So if it accidentally puts two words together, and that's a little bit like copywriting. And I mean that in the sense of a person who goes in and checks copy to make sure that it's good. So if you draw a vertical line between characters, then it will bring those words together or separate them.
Interestingly, they also demonstrated at the keynote a penmanship program for kids that would know if you were off track, it would correct it. And I thought that was very funny because I don't even know if they still teach penmanship in school because I think everybody's assumed, well, we should really teach keyboarding. And Apple now understands we better start teaching kids how to write because we might be doing that. I pointed out when we were covering the stream that the real market for this is not, in fact, the U.S. The real market for this is China. And, and they even demonstrated Chinese characters. Languages that aren't Roman, that have ideographs instead of individual letters, traditionally very difficult on a computer. Chinese and Japanese, the most obvious. And, Chinese has, hundreds of thousands of words. A literate Chinese speaker probably can read and write anywhere between 10 and 100,000 words. I was always told if you want to be literate, you need about 80,000 characters. No keyboard can render 80,000 different characters. So being able to write in China is huge. So I have a feeling that's what this is really for. It's less for our much more ambiguous alphabet and much more for the much less ambiguous Chinese ideograms.
Yeah, and what I found fascinating was that it was mixed language that the person was using. Yeah. So part of the conversation was in English. Yeah. And it was easy to switch between the two. That's some impressive stuff in my opinion. Yeah. So I thought that was really cool.
I think that's clearly the market this is aimed at. But maybe we'll start using it too. It has to be it's still very Newton-like. I have to say, it looks like
that first thing was a little disappointing. But again, so this is what I was going to say. I just remembered my train there. as if you've given permission for Apple to collect your activity on your device, of course, it's privatized and things like that. As the public beta comes out and as the developer beta continues, Apple's going to collect more handwriting and start to learn from those models and get better.
Okay.
So I wouldn't be surprised if we continue to see improvements in the handwriting recognition as more models are added to Apple's overall thing, with differential privacy and all of those things in mind, of course. But I think that will help improve. So that's why I always have send diagnostics to Apple.
Turned on.
I always give that one because I think that it's fantastic that I can, with my privacy still in place, help to improve upon the experiences.
So Scribble is interesting. It's going to get better. You're in the earliest possible days of it. It will work better with some people. I bet we lefties will not be quite as well supported.
Yeah, as lucky. Yeah.
But
I even used the what did we start calling it? The what maneuver? Oh man, now I'm forgetting.
The Heimlich?
No. Our name for putting our
Jiggle?
iPads down.
Oh, the sticky hand maneuver? What? Putting our?
See.
Oh yeah, that's right. This is the one where
the van maneuver.
The van maneuver. That's from the name of the guy who sent us this obvious way to use the Magic Keyboard with the iPad, not to have it magnetically attached, but slide it down to that little lip, and it's a perfect angle for drawing. And unfortunately, that lip isn't as stable as I
not
would
as
like
sturdy.
it to be. Yeah, but the van maneuver with the pencil.
Yeah,
I just have to find my pencil now.
I want to talk about AR
because my handwriting's so terrible.
Right. Yeah. I want to talk about AR because, especially for the iPad that is out there, right? Or that, you have the newer iPad with LiDAR. There's a new depth API that will give precise depth measurements that are gathered by that LiDAR scanner. And what this allows is some pretty incredible, not only body measurements, but also positioning of objects in front of and behind real world objects. So on screen, they showed it looked like a little, bench basically from some furniture store. And it was behind a couch that was in real life actually there. And so object occlusion worked very well because of the LiDAR sensor. That also means that, virtual try-ons and things like that will get better. So you can see how a piece of clothing will fit you a little bit more than current options where you don't quite get what your size is in comparison to what the clothing size is. There's going to be better face tracking support, not just for devices that have the special cameras on the front for Face ID, but including ones that have just the single front camera. As long as it has the A12 Bionic chip or later, then face tracking is going to get even better on that front-facing camera.
What is this creepy picture?
I think that the creepy thing in front is not actually there and is there only in
this thing,
virtual space.
Dispose of the clown with a skull for a head.
Very scary.
I don't even want to know what that is. The other thing that's changed a lot.
It looks like a dead Mickey Mouse. Is what it looks like. Do you see with the ears?
It feels like a political statement. I really don't understand it, but. They're holding a globe. There's a kid. There's a father. They have X's for eyes. I don't know. Is it Dead Mouse? I don't know who it is.
Dead Mouse.
I don't know.
Dead Mouse.
This is nowadays when you get to be my age or your age when you're as old as you are.
In spirit, right?
In spirit. You look at this stuff and go, must be the kids. Must be something. Must be the kids.
Honestly.
Get this.
It was kind of I guess it's something I just don't get. Yeah. This is not for me, is what I
must be. Yeah. This is something the kids get.
I wanted to talk.
You want to talk about messages too? Because I think this is important. Because you're a big group message user.
Yeah, but I really quickly want to touch on something called location anchors. And
good.
You may have heard about it, but I think this is a super cool thing where you can basically. I like to think of this is going to be like geocaching, but ARKit geocaching. So real world locations will be able to be tagged with ARKit experiences. And so you can go, I mean, you can do it in your home. So one of the examples that someone gave was an AR message board for your home. And so the family can sort of check the message board before they leave, instead of, I guess, having a cork board or a dry erase board. But you could put, photos and videos and everything all in the AR space. But then in real life, museums and different places could have AR experiences, and they'll always stay where they are because it's map based as opposed to based on, the session for AR. So I think that's a really cool feature that's going to be coming. Messages.
So we were close, by the way. Professor Panda Bear, thank you for the lesson. Says that's Leo. That's Kaws, Kaws. Apparently an American pop artist who does, I don't know.
Oh, so like an Andy Warhol type.
Kind of creepy clowns with X's and stuff.
Oh, that's Snoopy.
Yeah, there's
What's
Snoopy
wrong?
with
Why
an X.
Snoopy?
Yeah. So that's Kaws, and apparently they did a deal at some point with Uniqlo, and there were a bunch of Claus things.
Why? Again, I guess it's not for me.
Yeah, not for you.
Okay, let's talk about
Or
messages.
Us. Yeah, I'm excited. Now, this isn't for me. This is something the youngs use, but you do like group messaging.
So with this, you can see at the top on the left there are pinned conversations. These are the conversations that I have the most, and as you might imagine, my mother, my partner, and my family group chat are the ones that I message the most. So those get dropped into the pinned area so you can quickly access them. You can have up to 9 pins. And then within those, you can set a group photo, for example. So it's a long story, but I have a group chat with some friends of mine. They are in the film industry, and they do a film podcast. And as a joke, we reviewed B-Movie, which is a terribly wonderful movie. And so there's a group chat that I have with them called the Beastie Boys with BEE. And so I changed the Beastie Boys. You can see down here on the left. Now you can use emoji to give an icon to your group chat. So I've got a B instead of
in the past. What it does is it would just have the heads of the people in the chat really, really tiny.
Exactly.
So I think I do think this is somewhat of an improvement.
And then in the pins, if someone responds while you have those pinned conversations, it will actually pop up a little thing, a little speech bubble to let you know that someone's spoken.
I love
and then
that.
Also,
yeah,
which I think is fantastic. It will show prominence. And so whoever was the last person to speak will show up bigger in those messages. The other stuff I can't show because I don't have anyone else on iPadOS and iOS, the most recent versions, but they include both mentions and inline replies. So think about those as threaded conversations. If you've got a group chat where a lot of people are talking, but you see something and you want to respond to it in particular, then you can respond to it, and other people can see those little inline replies as part of the conversation. So
it's kind of more like threaded messages. That's kind of cool. I think that, and they can be collapsed too if you don't want to see the side talk. You can focus the group. This is really all about group messaging, which, as I said, I have no friends. But if you had a group,
well, it's more that you've got Android friends, and it
actually that
it.
was really what ruined it because this is all for people who are all in on iPhones and iPads. Not much use to me, unfortunately.
I am curious what happens if I respond to a group message, because it actually lets me here. You can see that I'm able to respond to a person in a group chat directly as part of that new inline replies feature. Yeah. But I wonder how that's going to show up for them whenever I do it.
I know one of the things that happens in Android, if you send some iOS specific stuff like a response, you know how you can say thumbs up or ha ha on a previous message by long pressing it. It usually says something like Leo responded ha ha. Or
yeah, that's
it will,
true.
Yeah, so it tries to convert it into text in a way that adds that information somehow. Mm-hmm. Somehow, yeah.
Let's see what else. So we've talked about Memoji and Maps. We talked about Home, and we talked a little bit about Safari. The big thing with Safari was just that we're getting more privacy.
Yeah. This was all last
passwords.
week. We talked about that stuff. We should.
Yes.
So it's not to confuse you.
If you
I don't
missed
remember
the
that.
last episode of iOS Today,
We really focused
you
on
should
iPhone features.
Yeah.
Did they?
You should check that out.
Have you played with it on the multitasking in the sidebar and all those things? Have they changed that at all, or is that pretty much the same?
Pretty much the same.
Remember, though, this is developer beta, and before it comes out, it's still a few months off. They could conceivably add and change features. Some features could disappear as well. That's another reason Apple doesn't want everybody to use the developer beta. They don't want to set expectations and then have people be disappointed. Developers understand that, but I don't. I have expectations. I would like to see them, and I'm not alone. I would like to see them improve multitasking on the iPad. But on the other hand, I should point out, unlike a lot of people, I tend to go full screen even on the Mac. I kind of like doing one thing at a time.
Yeah, I think that's interesting that you go full screen on the Mac. But yeah, this looks pretty much the same to what you'd expect.
It sure does. Apple may feel like this is adequate. We don't need to go much farther.
Yeah, I think that's probably what it is, at least for now, until they figure out some way that it needs to be improved.
But again, that's to me, that's a Johnny Ive thing, and I think in the long term, as now that they're free from the shackles of Ivedom, that they may start to look at other ways to do multitasking, just as they've added, for the first time ever, picture-in-picture on the iPhone.
Yeah.
Which is another one where I'm sure Johnny said, no, you can't do that. You're either watching the video or you're not. You can't do both. And obviously, with him gone, yeah, you can. We do it on other devices. Why can't we do it on the iPhone? So
I haven't figured out how yet, but you are supposed to be able to set new default apps for your browser and for your mail application.
Oh, this was a big one that they did not mention at the keynote. But this is another example of Apple letting go. Because this was always the problem, is you had to use Safari as your browser. You could have other browsers on there, but the default was always Safari. Apple Mail was always the default mail. I, for one, would love to be able to say, no, I'd actually like to use, I use Canary. I'd like to use Canary as my default mail. Supposedly that will be in there.
Yes.
Now, remember, somebody asked this in the chat room, if you're not using Safari, say you're using Chrome or Firefox as your default browser, it doesn't make that much difference, right? Because they all have to use WebKit. That's another Apple rule. They can't use the Chromium engine. They can't use the Firefox engine. They have to use Apple's WebKit, and that is the case. So if you use a third-party browser, there may be additional features layered on top of WebKit, but you're still using the engine that Safari uses underneath. I don't think that's a problem. For instance, I use Firefox Focus, which has built-in ad blocking. And that still works, even though it's like using Safari with ad blocking. So that's a good thing, right?
Yeah.
Unless it's our ads. Don't block those.
Well, those aren't exactly the same, right?
No,
yeah,
they're better.
So exactly. Let's see. I'm trying to think if there's anything else that's iPadOS specific that we might have missed. I mean, that covers a lot of it. Again, you should definitely watch our last episode because that talked about iOS in general. And so there were lots of adjustments that were made to iOS across the whole. But you can also count on Safari having built-in translation. So if you come across a website that is in another language, you can just use Safari to translate that page into your native language.
That'll be nice.
Which I think is great. There have been a few times where that's been an issue, especially with rumor sites and stuff like that. And then, of course, password monitoring, which I think is fantastic, so that it's like Have I Been Pwned, the website that tracks if a website has been breached. And so it'll say, hey, you should probably change this password because your device is, has an issue. One thing that I noticed that I really like is, so you probably are aware of Continuity Clipboard.
Yes, I use that all the time.
Me too. I used to never use it because it didn't work, but as of iOS 13, the previous version of iOS and macOS Catalina and all those, I've had no issues ever using it. One of the things that I love about iOS 14 is that when you do continuity clipboard, it gives you a little notification letting you know where you are pasting from.
Good.
So if you ever do run into an issue where for some reason it's not pasting, you'll know that there's clearly an issue because you're not getting it. It's just a little pop down from the top, similar to whenever you take off. And let me show you. Whenever you take off and put down your iPad or your Apple Pencil, well, maybe it's not going to do it. Then it'll show that little notification.
Oh, no, that's the pencil battery.
Yeah, that was just me showing that as an example. It will do the same thing. It looks like that.
Got it.
Yeah.
No, I think that's great. I use that a lot because sometimes there's a password on one machine that they don't have on the other machine, or there's a code or something that I'm trying to remember, and I can just copy it on one Mac, on my Mac, for instance, and then just when I paste on my iPad or iPhone, there it is. But it would be nice to know that actually happened, because it just happens, and you just take a chance and paste and see what happens. But that is a really nice feature. I've been using that a lot lately.
Yeah.
Well done.
That covers it.
Thanks for taking the hit, so we don't have to.
You're so welcome. You're so welcome.
Sometime in July, you'll be able to do the public beta of iOS 14 and iPadOS 14. We didn't talk about Watch. Some nice new features. I know you're really excited about sleep
tracking.
Yeah. And they're doing it differently, which is interesting. It isn't exactly the same as the other sleep tracking apps like Fitbit. It ties into a lot more stuff. It gets you ready for sleep. I think this is going to be a very interesting use for the Apple Watch. In fact, everything they've added to the Apple Watch, including a new exercise called Dance,
everybody dance now.
I think incremental, but really nicely done. I'm very excited. They also, I think, a good idea, renamed activity to fitness. How's your fitness?
Feeling so fit.
Fitness. There's also little things that, like, I thought the hand washing thing was cute. We all have been singing Happy Birthday way too much. And so it's nice when you're washing your hands to time it. It can tell from the oddball motion and the squishing sound of soap.
Squish.
That's what they said, that you're washing your hands, and a little 20-second timer will pop up on your Apple Watch. It'll beep you if you stop washing too soon. It'll let you know when you've washed enough. That's going to be of limited use, but
when it eventually
in years to come
out.
Someday. But you know what? I think we might keep washing our hands. That's not a bad idea.
I hope we continue to wash our hands properly.
Before COVID, I would just, run some water, stick my hand under there.
Get
That's
some
good.
soap,
That's
run
clean.
some water, and we're good to go. Yeah.
Now, it's got the whole thing, the surgeon, the back, the front, the scrub with the nails, the whole thing. I'm doing it all. Counting to 10 for each movement, singing Happy Birthday 4 times. It's
doing a little jig.
It's crazy.
All of it.
So if the watch helps with that, that'll be nice.
Yes, I agree.
All right. Let's take a little break. When we come back, we still have lots more. There's news, there's questions, and we're going to also show you our app caps of the day. Our show today brought to you by, as it often is, our studios are brought to you by, our show today brought to you by LastPass. It is the very first app I install on my iPhone, on my iPad, whenever I get a new device, a computer, Windows, Mac, Linux, it doesn't matter. Any new browser, I install LastPass because it's the best password manager in the world. The most secure, the easiest to use. And if you're a business, as we are, we started using LastPass for everything, not maybe 3 or 4 years ago. I can't remember. I don't think we'd moved yet, so it must be at least 4 years ago. LastPass Enterprise is a really important solution. You can have, anybody watching this show knows about passwords, don't reuse passwords, generate long, strong passwords, all of that stuff. We know about password hygiene, but many of your employees may not. And LastPass is a really important way to help your employees do the right thing to protect your checking account, databases, websites, all the stuff the employees have the keys to. It helps them protect your resources. But it's an interesting thing because LastPass, employees love it. It's also easier for them. In fact, we love LastPass so much, we give every employee a free LastPass personal account. they call it LastPass Premium, to go along with their enterprise account because we want them to be safe everywhere. And now more than ever with employees going home, you might say, well, my employees are already home. It's never too late to implement LastPass. It's fast, it's easy, and no matter what's going on, it's a really important way to keep your business running smoothly and to make sure that every employee logging into your precious resources, whether it's your VPN or your bank account, is the right employee from the right location. They have a few ways of doing this. Of course, password management's their bread and butter. That's where it all started. But we're getting beyond the password, and I'm glad of that. We talk about that a lot on all of our shows. We've even had some LastPass panels talking about the future of authentication. One way, single sign-on. I love it. You go to a application or a service you need to log into. You say log in. It pops up a notification on your phone. You say, yeah, that's me. You're in. Easier for the employees, more secure for you. And, of course, IT always has insight into who has access to what and from where. You've got shadow IT oversight. You've got enforceable policies across all password-protected accounts so you can guarantee long, strong passwords. If you're using a VPN, add biometrics to your VPN login. That's one of the things LastPass is so great. And by the way, their authentication goes beyond two-factor to multi-factor. So, yes, sure, you can use fingerprint, but LastPass will also do contextual authentication, things like geolocation or IP address, to make sure that that employee is the right person to be accessing those resources. It's a seamless workflow for your employee. It's more secure for you. And, of course, LastPass uses industry best practices in every respect. They never have access to your password, for instance. All data is encrypted and decrypted on device. Only you can access your data. No bad guys, not even LastPass. They use AES 256 encryption, the best. In every respect, they do everything right. And I think that's why I'm so happy to be using LastPass and so happy they're supporting our show. LastPass can help make remote work simple and secure. Visit LastPass.com/twit to find out how they can help your business stay productive and secure no matter what. LastPass.com/twit. Thank you, LastPass, for supporting our show, for sponsoring the studio. We are in the LastPass studio, and thank you for helping me and our entire team be more secure in these difficult times. All right, Mikah, what's the news across the nation?
Well, up first, we talked about Jiggle Mode and how they actually said Jiggle Mode.
Yes.
Jonathan Mann, Song a Day Man, has released a song called I Just Go Into Jiggle Mode.
Okay.
I've included the link.
Am I allowed?
It's on Twitter. It's on Twitter.
Okay.
So in theory, yes, because I don't think YouTube's algorithms would be able to pull it since it's on Twitter. So yeah, if you can check the Notion doc.
Should I play the Twitter version or the YouTube
play the Twitter version because they're both the same.
Okay.
If I'm not mistaken, I think the YouTube version is just higher quality, but they're both the same.
Just go into. Oh, let's turn on the sound here.
Go into jiggle mode. Down deep below the surface. Down deep below the surface. Full access. Thanks, Emily. I just
Craig Federighi.
Down deep.
Air Force One, they call it.
Down deep below the surface.
Universal, not enough for you. Try Universal too.
I love this because it details so much of what happened.
My center too. OMG Rosetta 2. Electric Boogaloo. Why did he run away?
Oh, hey, we made it. Full access. Thanks, Emily. I just go into jiggle mode. Down deep.
It's Kevin Lynch, by the way.
Down deep.
Doing a great dance.
Support for iOS apps. What the f? Tell me more about that. If you see unoriginal Mac, you know shit's about to go down. We fixed Siri this year. That is all I want to hear. Big props to this presenter for also doing the dancing part.
Full access. Thanks, Emily. I just go into jiggle mode. Down deep below the surface. Down deep below the surface. Full access. Thanks, Emily. I just go into jiggle mode. Down deep below the surface. Down deep below the surface.
Kevin Lynch. Looking good.
Hey. you go, Kevin. I still love to get a record scratch on that.
Oh, that's so great.
Thanks, Jules.
Down deep in below the surface, I go into jiggle mode. That is great. That is really good. So let's give some credit. Only 10,000 views as we played that from Jonathan Mann, Song a Day Man with 2 N's.
He's been making Song a Day for something like, I think, 12 years now.
Jonathan Colton did that, but he stopped after a while. Jonathan Mann never stops.
He has never stopped.
Good. I think it's better than the keynote, somebody in the chat room says. There are a couple of a couple of good points there that we didn't mention. I mean, and they kind of just in one line said, "Oh yeah, your iOS apps will run on Macintosh, unmodified." What? That's, I think, huge, because remember, there's millions of apps that are on iOS. If they run unmodified, that's a very big deal.
Huge update to the Mac in terms of what's available there. And there are apps that I want to use on my Mac that are on iOS.
Yes.
So I'm really looking forward to that.
That's huge.
Hot on the heels of the announcement that Apple Silicon is coming to the Mac, there's now an article from The Verge covering the fastest supercomputer in the world that just so happens to be ARM-based.
See, this is something I think Apple was at great pains. Notice the word ARM never was mentioned in this keynote. They called it, and they will always call it, Apple Silicon, because it isn't an ARM chip. They licensed the ARM architecture, but they design their own chips. It is an ARM-like chip, but it's much more than any ARM chip developed by Qualcomm or anybody else, by Samsung. And one of the problems they have is people who have used Windows on ARM, as an example, and Microsoft just used kind of off-the-shelf Qualcomm chips at first, then customized them slightly, not dramatically, had horrible experiences. It's slow. It's terrible. And I think a lot of people were worried that, oh, no. In fact, we even had the conversation on MacBreak Weekly. They can't do it on the high end. ARM is just too slow. Well, it's not. And this supercomputer is a good example.
Yes. So it makes use of, by the way, this is a biannual ranking. So do it twice a year to test it. And Fugaku is the computer that's been co-developed by Riken and Fujitsu. And it uses a 48-core A64FX system on a chip. It is 2.8 times as fast as IBM's Summit. That is its nearest competitor. So 2.8 times as fast as its nearest competitor, and has resulted in 415.5 petaflops is its processing ability. Wow. Very, very cool.
So the key things to understand are there are two ways the chips get fast. One is by their clock speed. That's the single process speed. And there are ARM chips at 3.8 gigahertz. So there are no laggards compared to Intel. The other way you can look at the power of chips for some tasks is the ability to put multiple cores together. Intel's been doing this for a long time because once they kind of hit the limit of 4 or 5 gigahertz on a chip, there was no way to go farther. And so they just started putting 2, 3, 4 cores on a chip. I have a 10-core Xeon in my iMac Pro. People who bought Mac Pros have even more cores. Ryzen, the AMD chip, goes all the way up to 64 cores. But the problem always with all of these cores is heat and power consumption. And one of the advantages ARM chips have, because they're RISC chips, reduced instruction set computers, is they're very good with power. They're very power efficient. And so I would not be at all surprised, just as this has how many ARM 48? It's a 48-core processor on a chip, and they have how many of those in one device? So I wouldn't be surprised to see future Mac Pros have 48-core chips, 80, 90, 100 cores, because of the much improved power efficiency. You know, there's a limit to how much heat you can put in a box. There's a limit to how much power draw you can put in a box. But these chips will give you a lot more power in the long run. So, and the other thing that's interesting is Apple is not going to be going to Radeon anymore for their graphics processors. They're going to do their own GPUs. I think this is going to be very exciting time. The real problem I think Apple's going to have is unless you have to have a Mac, you'd be nuts to buy an Intel-based Mac at this point, right?
Mm-hmm. I know. I don't understand why they're still making them.
They said they're going to make them. Maybe they're already in the supply chain. They have the rumor is Ming-Chi Kuo rumor, and I know this is iOS today, and we'll talk a lot more about this on MacBreak Weekly, but I just want to pass this along. The rumor is that Ming-Chi Kuo said there'll be a 13-inch MacBook Pro, by the way, higher-end Mac, this year, and Apple said it's going to be a 2-year transition. Ming-Chi Kuo said all Macs in the year 2020 will be running on Apple silicon. And that makes more sense because if you come out a year from now with an Intel-based Mac, knowing that it's almost over, there's maybe another year left, are you going to buy that? No. So Apple's going to very quickly make this transition. This is not going to be a 5-year transition. This is going to be over in a year or two. It's very interesting. And it's going to be very interesting for us iOS users because suddenly they're all running the same silicon. It's going to be really, really interesting. Compatibility across the line will be completely different.
So let's go ahead and move on. I wanted to share this piece from Dieter Bohn over at The Verge, I think more famously known as Backlot on Twitter, or maybe more recognized in that way. But he's written an article, "The iPadification of the Mac is coming, no touchscreen required." And it's basically a sort of piece-by-piece discussion about how macOS is going to be a lot more like iPadOS, including, of course, the ARM transition, the fact that iOS apps will run on the Mac, Catalyst serving as the go-between, and then what macOS Big Sur does in terms of design to make the Mac more like iPad. Yeah. So it's more. It's less of a this is not new information in terms of the idea that the Mac would become more like iPad. But what I like is the gathering of all of this information in one place to say, here are all of the ways very clearly that we can see the iPadification of the Mac, despite the fact that we had that big no so long ago.
Well, it's all semantics. They're not going to merge, but they're going to be very similar.
Right.
We should point out Apple did say, and I think this is important, that they will continue to support Intel Macs for some years to come, that Big Sur and the universal binaries that they're going to make will work on both Intel silicon and Apple silicon. But I think the end is nigh is a fair thing to say. And I, for one, I was a little unhappy about the transition to Intel. I had a very low opinion of x86 architectures, having used Motorola 68000 series and the PowerPC series. I really loved those chips, and I'd written assembly code for them, so I really understood the guts of them. And I knew and I'd also written assembly code for Intel, and I knew how ugly Intel is, especially its memory management. But I don't have any of that trepidation here. Apple's going to make its own chips designed to optimize for the different platforms. So they'll make an A12 or 13 for the iPhone, an A12 or 13X or Z for the iPad, and then who knows what, an A15 for the Mac, and they'll all be compatible. But they'll all be tuned for their use. This couldn't be better. I think this is huge for the Apple ecosystem. And the thing I said to you during the event is, I'm a little worried because Apple's so good that I think they're going to suck all the air out of the room. Why? It's like, okay, fine. Let's all just use Apple. And I think competition is really important to keep Apple honest, to keep Apple innovating. But at this point, what an advantage. What a synergy they have.
Yeah, agreed. Next thing, this is, I think, going to shake the pants off of some of the other findable accessory makers out there. So those little things, those little Bluetooth tags.
Tile and Tracker. Tile was very worried about this. They saw this coming. In fact, the CEO of Tile testified in Congress, Apple's going to kill us.
And that is, I can see that happening. So Apple is now calling the whole environment of Macs, iPads and iPhones, Apple Watches that are out there, the Find My network. And
see, this is interesting because we still are waiting for Apple Tags, their version of these Bluetooth tackers. Maybe they never had an intention to make Apple Tags. Maybe this is what they were thinking. I don't know. What do you think? Will there still be tags? He mentioned, it was such a quick slide. We almost didn't talk about it. But he mentioned, and it showed on the slide, keys and other devices that weren't Apple devices. So there's got to be tags.
One would think.
But where are they?
Whether Apple is making tags or there will be new companies that make MFI program tags, you are going to be able to, the third-party accessory makers will be able to leverage Apple's Find My network using advanced end-to-end encryption and, diversify, like all the stuff to make sure that it's private, but they'll be able to leverage the Find My network so that someone can find a lost device as long as there's an iPhone nearby, basically. So think about the number of iPhones, iPads, and Macs that are out there in the world. You will be able to leverage that to find your lost device, not just your own devices, or if the phone can or cannot connect to, Wi-Fi or a cellular service, but using the other devices in the area to triangulate and find your device. And third-party developers third-party accessory makers are going to be able to use this. This is huge in my mind. Think about any number of devices that you have that are not made by Apple that you wish you could have used Find My iPhone for. And now that's going to be a possibility as long as, the third-party accessory maker takes advantage of it. I think this is great.
To paraphrase Oprah, 1 billion trackers in your pockets, y'all.
Exactly.
It is big, and they've really glossed over it. So there's a lot more to be learned about that. They just went right by it, one slide. But I think there's something going on here.
I have it favorited in the developer app, so I'm going to watch the WWDC session about it to get more information on it.
Sessions are going to be, yeah. And again, a reminder, we're recording this early. Micah's going to be out on June 30th, so you may, in the future, you people of the future may already know stuff that we don't know. But as of our record date, which is June 23rd, a week earlier, still some big mysteries. I suspect those will be around for a while.
What Leo is saying is don't email us.
Don't email us. I should also be a little more skeptical and point out Apple often announces new technologies that don't take off.
Absolutely. But Find My has already taken off.
For Apple users, yeah. The other one I'm kind of interested in, they announced a new use for NFC and special Apple NFC tags with a special Apple design QR code. That's going to take developers to adopt it, and I'll be very curious to see if that takes off or if in a couple of years we're saying, whatever happened to that Apple custom QR code, the little circular code? Is that around anymore? Anybody do that?
Yeah, that's a good point. Those are the things that I don't think those are going to take off. I have to agree. I am excited though, Leo. There is an entire developer WWDC session devoted to the U1 chip and a new experience.
You love that U1 chip, that ultra-wideband chip.
Ultra-wideband chip.
Yeah.
There's going to be one coming up that will they're putting it out as if it's a game thing, but it uses two devices and the exact position of those devices with the U1 chip to create experiences that are unique for that. So I'm looking forward to learning about that, not for the gaming thing, but for possible future developments, things that could happen with it. So I don't know. I'm really pumped about that. Looking forward to watching that, but it doesn't come out until later this week. And then last but not least in the news is that, look what I can finally do. People have been asking for search for emoji for a long time, and now you can search for emoji. So if I want to send Leo a
Because in the past, if you just type a word, it would offer that as a autocorrect.
Yes.
Now you can just search for it.
Yeah, because sometimes the autocorrect
is not right. Yeah.
Didn't surface the ones you were looking for. So
Cool. That's a big improvement. Is that iOS 14 or is that here now?
That is iOS 14. So that's an upcoming.
Dang
I know,
it.
I'm sorry.
Dang
I'm
nabbit.
sorry. Let's move on to feedback or questions.
All right. Questions. We get questions.
Ray sent this question a bit ago and said it would get around to it, and so we're here. I would like to have cookies deleted automatically from my Safari browser whenever I close the browser. I've looked and looked, but I've not found a way to do that except by deleting them manually before closing the browser. Do you have a solution that will help me? I have two solutions, Ray. One solution is to use Safari private browsing mode. That is quite literally what you're asking for. While you're using the browser, the sessions will stay saved during your use of the browser and while you're in that Safari private browsing mode session. But as soon as you leave that private browsing mode session, then those cookies will be deleted. So it's essentially creating a containerized browsing experience that once you're done will go away. So the problem with turning off cookies completely is that when you visit a site that you need to have a cookie stored for temporarily to get to certain things in the site over and over again, having no cookies makes that a little bit more difficult. With Safari private browsing mode, they're there for the moment, but whenever you're done, then they go away. Another option, of course, is to just use a third-party browser like Firefox Focus or another privacy-forward browser that will do that. So I think Safari private browsing mode is probably your best bet, and it's so easy to access. You open up Safari, and I've got Safari in stinking side-by-side mode. You tap on the tab icon in the top right corner of Safari, and then you choose private in the top right corner, and then you can start private browsing mode. So after you're done, that will all be gone after you close the tab. But while you're using it, that information will be there.
It's usually sufficient just to turn off third-party cookies. I mean, cookies are so helpful. When you log into Facebook, it sets a cookie so you don't have to enter your password every single time. I guess maybe that's what you want, but if you block third-party cookies, those are the ones generally used for trackers. And one of the things they did talk about at the WWDC is the fact that the Safari is getting better and better at blocking fingerprinting and other kinds of tracking. So I think Safari is pretty privacy-forward. I wouldn't worry too much about cookies. Cookies are really useful. They're not bad.
Yes.
They're really
they
useful.
weren't originally created to be a bad thing.
You need them.
Yeah. And then Dustin has a question for us. Hi. I purchased a Logitech Circle View camera after hearing Mikah's recommendation of it on a recent iOS Today. Awesome. I love the camera and I'm using it as a baby monitor in a nursery and like the privacy and security from being a HomeKit-only device. Double awesome. There are two main pain points I'm hoping I can solve, but I haven't figured out how when it comes to using the camera in HomeKit. Here's the first question. Is there a way to allow multiple people to view the stream? My wife and I often end up locking each other out when we hear a noise upstairs and fire up our phones. So within HomeKit, the multi-streaming service is a bit of a complication. If you are both trying to view the stream at the same time, then it can cause an issue where they're both not able to be viewed because one person or the other is viewing it. That is... My understanding is that is a bug that is going to be corrected in a future version of this HomeKit implementation. Try to keep in mind that HomeKit Secure Video is one of the newest features added to HomeKit, and so they're still working on that. I would not be surprised, and I know that this doesn't help you in the immediate time, but I would not be surprised to learn that in iOS 14, this is corrected because of all of the multi-streaming that's available with HomeKit Secure Video. That said, my recommendation for you is to try having one person use the Logitech app and one person use the HomeKit app. It's not a clean solution, and it's not the best one that's available, but that could let you both view it at the same time because they're sort of streaming from different systems. The second question is, and this is I love this question because it's perfect timing, is there a way to cast video from my iPhone Home app to an AirPlay or Apple TV device? Dustin, I'm really sorry to say this. You're going to have to wait until tvOS 14, iOS 14, but Apple just announced this last week at WWDC, and this is a feature that's coming in the next version of iOS and tvOS.
Great. That's exciting.
So soon, my friend, soon.
You know what else is soon?
It's app caps.
Can I park your car, sir?
We're both doing hair.
We're doing hair app caps today. On iOS today, we wear these silly caps to celebrate. Oh, I can see it coming. Oh, hello, Blondie. Well,
Hello there, Leo Laporte. It's so nice to talk to you.
Happy birthday,
Mr. President.
We wear these. You can't really call what Micah's wearing a cap. It's a blonde wig. I have an actual cap, but attached to the top of the cap is my surfer dude
Guy Fieri
frosted
hair.
tips. Yeah. And this we wear in honor, and it is an honor.
In honor
of our app caps, our picks of the week. Why don't you start, Blondie?
our lovely app picks.
Go
of the
ahead,
week.
Blondie. You just start now. You go ahead and do it.
All right, what I've got for y'all this week is an excellent app. It's called HomeDash. Okay, I'll stop. It's called HomeDash, and it is a fancy schmancy app that lets you. Where are all of my widgets? See, I had to go and update to iOS 14, so now it needs to redo things. Okay, so let me talk about HomeDash and what HomeDash is. HomeDash is a very cool way to create a dashboard of your HomeKit-enabled devices. So this lets you access your HomeKit system and set up a dashboard that includes information for your different widgets. So I can, for example, get easy information about the current temperature, humidity, and air pressure of my home. So you can see the temperature is in around about 70 degrees within my home.
That's really a good use of widgets, I think.
Isn't it?
Yeah.
It tells. These are all the different places that are, temperature and
they're
humidity
controls too.
devices.
It's not just a readout, right? You can tap it and turn up the temperature.
You can actually exactly, and you can
so
add
cool.
controls. So I've got I can keep track of the different devices in my home that have batteries in them. There is a way to organize these as well, but I think I'm doing it wrong. So you can see which batteries I need to replace in my different devices. I can see if there's any connection issues in different devices, and look at how detailed this gets. I can go into different zones, so I can only have the devices that are downstairs that I can turn on and off. And look, I can turn them all off or all on at the same time. I can turn them all on and off independently. I've got my time there. I can add a weather widget to tell me the current weather. All of the sensors across my home for air quality, for example, or the current consumption of electronic devices. I mean, this is the most detailed dashboard app I've ever seen, just in general, but particularly for the HomeKit home. So you can set up dashboards for your whole space, for a given room, and then make adjustments to what is available in these rooms. So I can turn off that dashboard list if I just want to have this one, for example. And so many things to edit here. Then control for these different rooms. So in my dining room, I've got, well, let's see, a better room probably would be my office, where I've got 9 different services. And you can see I can make adjustments to these based on what they are. And, turn on and off lights or change the hue of the lights. Here, I love this this color option because there's so many different color availabilities, so that you can quickly and easily adjust the hue of a bulb. Or in this case, I've got some Philips Hue Go lights in my space, and
that's cool. That's really.
I can set up scenes and things as well. And then, last but not least, I just want to show that this is made so that if you have an extra iPad or iPod Touch or iPhone, I guess, although I would not use an iPhone for this because you can use an iPhone for so much more, I can set this up so that it always keeps the display on here. You see that always on option. So you can basically create a home control device that stays in one place in your home. So again, if you've got an old iPad that's not really being used for anything else, and you want a one place in your house that basically serves as the central control panel for your home, that's what this is great for. It will let you make those adjustments and always have that display available and on. It's always plugged in, and you can turn that on. I love too that if I want to set this up across different iPads or iPhones, there's this great AirDrop feature that lets you send the configuration over to those other devices. They've really thought of everything in this, including, you can see up here it shows Home Hub connected, so you can make sure that your home hubs are connected in whatever area it happens to be. It has more HomeKit features than the Home app itself, because it plugs into some of the stuff that Apple kind of buries in the main Home app, because again, it goes back to, we want it to be easy for users. This is definitely for advanced users, but if you are advanced or you're just curious, this application is fantastic for making sure that you have the information that you want at any given time for any number of devices, and any of the different characteristics that are available for those devices to give you that information. I will say, for an app, and I should say for an iOS app, it seems expensive, but for what it does and for all of the features that it has, and if we were just thinking about apps in general, a macOS app could be $50-$60. At $12.99, it is, again, it's a little pricey for what you are probably used to, but this is one of the most detailed and I would say complex apps that I've ever come across in general, and particularly for having so much control and information available about your HomeKit setup. I think it's fantastic.
Very nice.
HomeDash.
HomeDash. And how much is it?
$12.99.
$12.99. $13 if you're rounding.
$13. Well, yes, which one should do. What's your app, Leo?
My app comes straight from Flavortown. It is, okay, this came up for me a couple of months ago. I got a card in the mail saying, hey, PG&E, your electric company, is giving massive rebates to people in your area because of the fires if you want to put in a Tesla Powerwall battery. So that you don't lose electricity. And I thought, this is something I've always wanted to do. They said, we could save you $7,000. So I immediately went to the website, gave them my name and phone number, and I guess they wanted the address too to verify. Boy, was that a mistake. They've been calling me. Not only have they been calling me ever since, and I have told them, stop calling me. I blocked numbers. I think they pass it around. I think you become a lead in the system, because then one of them says, oh, if you don't want to hear from me anymore, please let me know. I said, no, I don't want to hear from you anymore. Then another guy starts. It's like, oh, not from me, but maybe my friend Dan here, you'd like to hear from him. And then
who's offering the same stuff.
And then I think I'm starting to get a lot of spam phone calls too.
In general?
In general. So I think after I said, I don't want to buy it from you, they said, well, screw you. Here, we're going to sell your phone number. Because all of a sudden, so never again.
Never again.
Never again. And yet there are times you want to follow up on things. And for those times, I want to introduce you to MySudo. This is a great app, and I'll show you the pricing. It's kind of difficult, but it gives you a unique phone number in your area, a unique email. It does encrypted phone calls and encrypted messaging. It even has credit cards. You can also set up a one-time use credit card. So this is the ultimate in privacy.
I'm getting it.
Now, I'll show you the plans just so you understand. It's free if all you want is 3 different pseudos. You name the pseudos, so you can say, this pseudo is the pseudo I'm going to use when I sign up for siding, for aluminum siding or something like that.
Siding pseudo.
My siding pseudo. And you get one phone number for free, unlimited incoming messages and voicemails. It works with voicemails too.
How are they doing this for free?
Well, because they also have a paid tier if you want to use it for outbound. So that's the interesting thing. And I think the credit cards, the virtual cards, are probably where they're making their money. But even if you want the paid version, it's only $10 a year, 99 cents a month. So I guess
that's incredible.
Yeah, it's cheap. So, but let me show you what it looks like, because I have it on my iPhone, and I think this is a really something everybody's going to want to have. You're not going to use it all the time, and I should point out, if your goal is to use it to harass people to sign up, let's say for the next exciting chapter in the Donald Trump campaign in Phoenix, You TikTok folks, maybe you don't, I don't know. Yeah, you probably could use it for that. But it's in the U.S. They're subject to U.S. laws. So don't use it to commit crimes or, harass people. But so you set up a pseudo, right? And here's what the messages look like. I put the background. You can have a variety of different backgrounds. But this is encrypted text messaging, but it goes to this unique number that I have, right? So
cool.
That's really cool. I can take phone calls. I can see email. Yes, voicemail also. You can even have you can use the browser because it's on iOS, so it's going to use WebKit. And that way they won't even see your browser activity. And then you can do the virtual cards. I think this is totally brilliant. Yeah. So this is the pseudo I sent up. So it's got a 510 number. You can call it all you want. Doesn't matter to me. It has its own email. Now the email comes at pseudomail.com, which means you probably aren't going to get the, vanity email you want. I tried spam or, inquiries, and those are taken. But you can make up any email with numbers or whatever to get a unique email. The spammers don't care. They think they've got your phone number and email. They don't. They have your pseudonymous personality. But what's great is you can't even call them back from your encrypted pseudos. You can even email them or text message them. They'll see it as that number, not your real number. They'll see it as that email address, not your real address. And for, incoming messages is free forever. So the free version gives you 3 different pseudos. 3's enough because you can reuse these over and over again with other people. In fact, really, I'll probably just keep using this all the time. Because it's just not going to bug me. It doesn't go to your phone. It doesn't go to your voicemail. You will get notifications if you turn it on that you've got a text message or a phone call, that kind of thing. But you don't have to. So this is a great way. The next time you want to sign up for a drywall repair or window cleaning or, whatever it is, and you're just afraid they're going to spam the hell out of you. This is the way. This is the way to do it. It's MySudo, SUDO. You can go online and read about it at mysudo.com because they have a website.
Truly incredible.
Isn't that a great idea? 4 a.m, I'm looking for an app cap, and I knew I needed this. I just didn't know what could do it, and I found this. It's end-to-end encrypted. End-to-end encrypted. They're going to have group messaging and expiring messages soon. When they call you, you can choose a phone number. Don't give your mother your pseudo number. That's rude. You could choose a phone number in your area code, although that's clever. Mom is calling. Yeah, go ahead, Mom. Call all you want because you're going into my pseudo video. You also have video chat with end-to-end encryption. This is privacy forward. And these guys, that's really what they care about. This is not designed to, be used for harassment and other things. This is really designed. They're all about privacy. And I think this is a really great idea. Before you use your real email or real phone number on the internet or sign up for stuff, before you use a real credit card, we have a great sponsor, privacy.com, which I use for my credit card, so I'm not going to worry about that. And they do charge you for the use of the virtual card. But I just love this idea. I think this is everybody should have it. It is one of those apps you stick in the folder, jiggle, 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 and then when you need it, it's available to you. MySudo. That's my app cap of the week.
I love it.
You will find Mr. Mikah Sargent every week on Smart Tech Today, on iOS Today, on Tech News Weekly.
And on Hands on iOS.
And on Hands on iOS. You got 4 shows now. You're growing. You're a growing entity. He will also appear from time to time on our Friday Fun Follies, the TWiT After Hours. Did you play poker?
I find card games
not
grueling.
Your thing. Yeah. So, but maybe this week. I don't even know what we're doing this week. Maybe this week.
This week, I don't want to reveal it because I think we'll wait until we can confirm it. But if it's what I think it's going to be a lot of fun, and I believe I'm hosting it. So I'm really looking forward to it.
Is that why you've got the wig?
Yeah, that's
Is it the return of what's her name from HR?
Stephanie Studebaker. Except that's not the right voice. Stephanie Studebaker.
Stephanie Studebaker from HR is back, baby. I am some guy on the radio and TV and all that stuff, and I got the hair to prove it. And let's go to a dive and diner and drive-in because I'm ready to have a greasy hamburger.
A greasy slider.
Oh, yeah, baby. We do iOS today. Tuesdays, won't be doing it on the 30th. Mike is taking the day off, but as you should, because that is the most important holiday of the year. June 30th. I don't know, taking some time off. It's summertime. You should enjoy yourself. But we will normally be here every Tuesday, 9 a.m. Pacific, noon Eastern time. That would be 1600 UTC. If you want to stop by and watch it, there's a stream all the time. Did you see the mixers going away? I couldn't believe it.
Yeah.
Microsoft's given it to Facebook, but we have other choices at twit.tv/live. You can get on-demand versions from the website, twit.tv/iOS. You can also subscribe. That'd be the best thing to do in your favorite podcast client. Just look for iOS today. That way you won't miss an episode or our fabulous hats or our accents or our singing. We'll see you next time. Oh, how can people ask a question? Make a suggestion.
You've got a question? It's iOS today at twit.tv.
Bada bing.
Bada boom.
Did you clear that with Miss Studebaker in HR?
No.
Thank you, everybody, for joining us. We'll see you next time on iOS Today.
Hey folks, it's Mikah Sargent here, co-host of Smart Tech Today right here on twit.tv. Every single week, Matthew Casanelli and I sit down to talk about smart tech for the week. That's right. It can get kind of complicated, but there's a lot of news out there. There's a lot of products to dig through. There are a lot of questions to answer, and we try to do that all every single week. From voice assistants to wearables to smart garage door openers and lights, there's so much to cover and, well, so little time. So be sure to check it out. It's twit.tv/STT. Oh, that rhymes.